Cool. Thanks everybody for joining. Definitely great to see so many folks on the call. I've got about 55 folks on here, and it's a crazy time and a crazy world that we're in right now. And hope everybody is doing well and is safe and healthy. And personally on our side, we're at home and we're doing well. Um, Feeling a little trapped, like a hamster, but things are okay. And hopefully, kind of push through, and um, everybody will be kind of back to business as usual in a few weeks, hopefully, maybe a few months, but I'm sure we'll pull through. See a few familiar names on the attendees list. So thanks, guys, for joining. Um, and we'll get started. So today, we're going to cover on our webinar today converting HFM from 11.124 to 11.2. So we're going to walk through a series of steps of what it takes to get that app over and upgraded, including the DB links and the data. And you might ask, like, well, what are you guys doing with HFM? I thought you guys were EPMware. So it's actually a pretty good question. And as part of what we do at EPMware, we support the target applications um, to Oracle and a bunch of other applications as well. And frequently with minor releases and changes, we try to make sure that all of our adapters and connectivity are working. So part of that activity was to get everything up and running on 11.2 and test all of our connections and all of the metadata that's pushing to those target apps. So we upgraded an HFM application from 11.124 over to 11.2. And, through that process, we figured, why not just share this with everybody that's out there in the community. And then specifically over the past, 2 weeks, internally, we figured, it's probably a good idea to start talking to folks and giving people as much education as possible. 'Cause a lot of us are, or almost all of us are home now, and always helps to just brush up on a few other skills. So we kind of walk through this process in detail, and hopefully we'll give you guys some insight on what to expect if you're going to be doing this activity, maybe sometime this year or sometime next year, depending on what your schedules are. So real quick, not to tempt you, but we've got a Zoom happy hour that we're doing today at around 6 o'clock. So, no agendas. It'll be hosted by myself and also by Kate Helmer from Huron. So we're going to just come online and hang out and talk and chill, and feel free to just grab a drink and come hang out, and you can ask some Oracle questions if you want, and you can ask non-Oracle questions if you want, or we can just talk about whatever. But definitely, uh, if we can get some time to unwind and hang out from a pretty crazy week or set a few weeks, it'll be good to just see some familiar faces and just take a load off. So the link to the Zoom for today, it's in my LinkedIn profile. You can look up Kate Helmer's profile. And I just realized I totally forgot to introduce myself. So my name's Abhi Nirikar, one of the co-founders here at EPMware. Um, and kind of just jump into our next slide over here. And I'll just give you background on myself. I've got Devin Shaw, head of technology, and Tony Karatzis also on the phone. So my background is primarily in the Hyperion space. I've been HFM consultant for a number of years, and I've done quite a bit of HFM, FDM, some DRM, a little bit of space planning, and now for almost 7 years, we're managing a metadata management and data governance software company. So for those of you who don't know what EPMware is, we do data governance, master data. We specialize mostly on the Hyperion applications, as well as the Oracle on-premise cloud. Lately, it's been a lot of OneStream and Anaplan, Workday integrations as well. So, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So, Tony, if you're online, I'll let you do your quick 30-second intro.
Sure. Welcome, everyone. This is Tony Karatzis, also one of the co-founders of EPMware. My background is actually I started out in finance and accounting, did that for about 10 years, and then moved into the consulting side, did consulting for HFM and S-Space primarily, and I've been involved with EPMware for the last, 6 years now?
Yeah, 6, 7.
So, yeah, so looking forward to showing you guys the conversion today. I'll pass it over to Devin.
Hi guys, hope you can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, hello everybody, and thanks for joining. My primary background is on the technology side, but on the application side, I worked on Oracle EBS, Salesforce, HFM, S-Base, and planning. And yeah, very happy to show you our great product. In the last 6 years, it has been an exciting journey for us. So happy to show you the product. Abhi, back to you.
Awesome, thanks, Devin. Cool. So go through a few slides just to kind of give you a layout of what we're going to talk about today. EPMware is metadata management. We've got on-premise and an AWS SaaS cloud offering. There's obviously consulting, training, and support that mirrors what you would expect from an enterprise-grade software company. Our history here started back in 2014 with an on-prem product, move over to the cloud, and now we're just trying to add as many other target integrations as possible. I've kind of made the leap from a product that manages primarily Oracle Hyperion to non-Oracle or Hyperion products as well. So, where we see some excitement building around a financial or non-financial product, we try to integrate that as well. But there's always the ability to build integrations or manage any type of metadata in EPMware. All right, I'm going to jump through some of these slides, and we'll kind of revisit back on EPMware shortly. But I do want to just kind of jump right into the topic at hand, which is getting HFM on 11.2. And again, we started with an app that was 11.124, and the exercise that we're going to walk through is actually getting it up and running on 11.2. So Tony was, the brains behind this, and Devin also jumped in and really they kind of put their heads together and got this fired up and ran the test cases. So I'm going to hand it over to Tony to run through this process. But what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the HFM application, really just getting the database link up and running. And I think, Tony, was like the DB link was a prerequisite, right, to starting all of this?
Yeah, and actually Doug was going to just talk about that real quick before I start the actual conversion.
Okay, cool. So the steps we're going to do is really importing the HFM application from 11.124, running the upgrade utility, and then finally registering the application with shared services. And at the tail end of this process, what we're going to do is give you a little rundown on managing metadata, because obviously, EPMA in this process is going to be gone. So if you're using EPMA, expect to either manage metadata manually, or we are offering EPMware as a solution as well. So, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but Devin, I'll let you talk about creating this database link, which is step number 1, I believe.
Yeah, sure. So what I've done here is I put up a link also, and you can refer to that link for details. But what we need to do in essence is connect these two databases. If it is a SQL server, then your source and target has to be SQL server both. Has to be the same database type. If it is Oracle, then both have to be same Oracle database. The versions are okay. You can use 12c or latest version you have, both are compatible. One can be 11c, one 11, and other can be 12. That should be fine. Having said that, you need to go to the destination database, which is your 11.2, create a database link to your source database. Once you create that database link, then Tony will show you what will happen in 11.2 upgrade. It will automatically pull in all the HFM applications for you to import from. So the steps are only literally five, 6 steps, where you log into the 11.2 database. You give a grant to yourself using a sysadmin user to create a database link. Once you have that, then you need to get the credentials of the 11.2.4 database schema. You get that inside your 11.2 database. And as soon as you create this database link, which is nothing but a pipe between source and target database, you are up and ready to go. So it's a really, really easy step to do. I think that's pretty much. And then giving back to Tony.
Okay. Okay, so basically the first step in the process is, so this is assuming that your 11.2 environment is up and running and you have it, and you have the database link connected, as Devin just went through. So then you basically go and log into 11.2 workspace and go to the consolidation administration screen, and then there's an admin task called import application. You're going to do the next slide, Abby. And then when you click on that import application, this screen will pop up. This is where you're kind of selecting all your parameters for the source and target application and kind of telling it what you want to import. So that first drop-down box, it has database links. You should probably just see one in there that that Devin created. You'll see, just basically one link in there, so you can select that. And then from the source application, depending on how many HFM applications you have, you might see several in that drop-down. So in this case, it's just sample 7. So you select that source application, and then for the destination application, this actually gets the 11.2 application actually gets created during this process. Okay, so whatever you put in for your destination application name, in this case, we're just also calling it sample 7. And you can put in destination application description, and that will be the application that gets created during this process. So you also have to select the destination cluster. You probably just have one, but you could potentially have more than one HFM cluster. So you select that from the dropdown. And that last drop-down box is your shared services project, basically. It'll probably be financial close management, or you might have a project set up specifically for HFM. And that's what you'll see under shared services. And you'll see all of your projects in this drop-down box that you have in your shared services. So this next, those last 3 check boxes are kind of crucial. This is it. You're actually telling it what data that you want to import. So the first box is for audit tables. Like if you want to import all your audit tables, you might have a lot of data in there you don't want to import, but you might want all of it for an audit trail. So if you want to import that, you can select that box. And then the next one is your actual financial data, import data tables. That'll be all of your financial data. And if you want to just bring it all in, you can just select that box, and then the filter for data box, the next one, you can just leave that one blank. But if you have a lot of data, like say you have like 10 years of data, and you have a lot of scenarios, you might want to just pick one scenario and then a couple years or 1 or 2 years to bring in, just to see how long it's going to take. And it's kind of depending on how you're set up. Like if they're in separate data centers and, opposite sides of the country or something, then you might want to, just bring in one scenario and a couple years of data to see how long it's going to take, so you don't run into any network issues with dropping the connection. But if you just have or maybe you don't want to bring in all the data, you can just select, if you have a little bit of data, you can just select like your 2 or 3 scenarios and maybe 2 or 3 years of data, and that should probably work fine.
Yeah, this is
so it gives you the ability.
Would you
Yeah.
Would you recommend, like, I think you said, like, testing this out on like 1 year to see how long this would take? Do you know how long it takes?
Yeah, that's probably the best approach. Like just bring in like actuals for like 1 year. And if it takes like, 10 minutes and you're like, okay, I can probably bring in, bigger chunks of data. But, depending on your situation, if you have like, 10 years of data and, 20 scenarios, you probably just don't want to click them all at once and bring it in. Because a lot of times if you do a network connection between data centers, it might drop the connection or time out or a backup kicks in or something like that. And then also the source application, the final step is you have to have the source application in admin mode. So depending where you're bringing one, you might not where you're importing from, you may not want to, leave it in admin mode for like 7 hours by this run. So you just kind of have to feel it out. But I'd recommend just bringing in like maybe one scenario in 1 year to kind of get an idea of how long the import's going to take.
So if this is going to impact my Netflix bandwidth from streaming HD, I probably don't want to do them all.
Yeah, you got to take that into consideration too, especially.
Awesome. Okay.
So when you get all this selected, just go back one more slide. There's actually a little import. That little import application. I think it's off the screen here in the screenshot. Right. There's a little button at the bottom that says import application, and that actually executes the process, and it'll just start running. And so now you can go to the next slide.
Sorry.
Right. So basically, when that other process runs, when it's finished, you'll actually be able to see the application will be in HFM. You'll be able to see it in probably in shared services, but it didn't convert the schema, so it's not really. That's just like the first step in the process. So you've imported the application, the data, but the schemas haven't been upgraded yet to the 11.1.2 because there's some differences in the schemas. So this next step is you run the HFM upgrade utility, which comes when you install the app. That'll be in that path in your Oracle home directory under Financial Management Server. You'll see this executable called HFM Application Upgrade 64. So basically, you can just right-click on that while you're on the server and just run it as administrator. And when you execute that, you'll see this screen pop up. And basically, just you click Connect, and this is just connecting to your database in the 11.1.2 environment. And so you go to the next screen. And then after you click Connect, you'll see, you can go to the next slide, Abby. Sure. So after you click Connect, you'll see that this other screen will pop up. And this is where you're selecting the data, your 11.1.2 database where you want to connect to Oracle. And it actually, either during this process or the install process, it creates this TNS entry for you. So you can just leave that. It'll populate it. You can just leave that the default, unless your DBA does something or you want to do it separately or differently. But you can just use the default one, and then whatever your database port is probably 1521. That's kind of the standard one for Oracle. And then you just put in your Oracle service name ID and your credentials to log into the database. And the Oracle instance folder, it'll pre-populate that as well when you launch this utility. So then you go ahead and click connect. OK, and that will connect to the database. And then you'll see this next screen pop up. If you go to step 3, the next slide. So then after you connect to the database, it'll have a list of the available applications, and whichever one you can select, 1 or 2, whichever ones you want to upgrade. Again, you're probably better if you have multiple apps, just doing the first one, letting that finish. So in this case, you could say we'll select sample 7, and then you can just click the upgrade button, and it'll kind of execute the process, and that'll start running the conversion utility and upgrading your schemas to the new 11.1.2 version.
Did you hit any errors when we did this?
I don't think so. I think this actually worked the first time, surprisingly. Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, see, I just clicked ignore errors and continue, so that's why I didn't get any errors. See?
Yeah.
So I recommend hitting that button as well. So
Sweep
no, I
them.
didn't get any errors though. It actually worked for it rather well. I was surprised.
Okay.
So then after you do that, it'll just run. It didn't take that long. I think like maybe 10 minutes. If you go to the next screen, then you'll see another pop up with, it'll have a little success message. It'll say the HFM upgrade task completed, and it'll have the table names, some information. And then if you see that message, then you should be good. And then basically that upgraded the schemas for you. And then the final step is when I did it, actually this was already it was already registered, but it's probably a good idea to go in and just register it again, because it might have because you change the schema. So I think it's best to log into back into the consolidation administration screen, and then you can just select the HFM app you just converted and just say register with shared services, and that's it. Then you should be able to see it in your consolidation menu. When you go to select the app, you should be able to see sample 7, wherever your app name is, and then just go into shared services and just make sure you can see the app there and it's in the correct project folder. But that all seemed to work pretty well. So,
So this is taking like our data, the state of locked data, and then just copying that over. So if you're going to move an app to a new app, are you expecting like all prior periods that are locked and in their current consolidated state are going to be exactly the same, or is there any impact?
No, it should be, because you're basically copying the schema over, so you're not really changing the data or any flags in the database, like you said, for needs consolidation or locked or unlocked. All those flags should stay the same. You're not changing anything. You're literally just copying the data over from the legacy app, and it's just doing some upgrading whatever the changes were with the new schema to get it with compatible with 11.2. And then
one thing I forgot to mention is, folks on the call, if you have any questions, just feel free to put them in the chat box, and I think we'll get to them like towards the end of the call. I think I'm trying to monitor some. Okay, I do see some coming in, but yeah, I'll definitely address these towards the end of the call. Sorry, Tony, go ahead.
No, that was it. Yeah, I was just saying, they obviously log on the app, and when I did it, I logged in the app, everything looked fine. Like I said, the data was there and the flags all looked good. So
yeah, and Dave, I see your text. So Dave Shea from DataVale is also on the call, and we're seeing some questions. So I'm gonna just address some of these because I think they're pretty relevant. So thanks, Dave, for chiming in. So he's saying that unless Oracle has fixed a bug, the import application menu requires your user ID is provisioned to a pre-existing HFM app within the target environment. And he's saying that if this is a problem, create a sample app, and then you can go back and run the import application for the real app. So thank you for chiming in. Yeah, and you know what we'll do is we'll take some of these questions and answers. Yeah. No, I mean, that's what I was like, we didn't see any errors on this, but I'm sure some folks will. But yeah, definitely check out, like, if you Google Dave Shea, SHAY, Dave's got an awesome blog where he's run through this process and also gone through like a multi-environment upgrade from 11.124 to 11.2, or even just the installs on 11.2. So definitely go ahead and check that out.
All right. Well, thanks for the tip.
Yep. So another question that just came in is, what about security during the upgrade process? Do we need to export LCM users or groups and provision 11.124 and then import them in 11.2?
I mean, this definitely isn't bringing over the security from if you have like native users and shared services, that would have to be separate. But the security provisioning in the actual HFM application, as far as the classes and everything, that would probably remain, because that's stored in a table and with HFM. Like when you export your security file out, right. So all that information is part of the app. So if you imported your shared services and had that set up, or if it's an Active Directory or whatever, as long as those same groups are there, I don't think you have to re-provision everything. But I didn't try that piece, so I'm not sure. But that's just my educated guess on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Good to know. Yeah. So just keep questions coming in. So, all right. So that basically wraps up the upgrade process. So this is sounds like a pretty quick process or a pretty straightforward process. I think this utility really makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, if you get out, as long as you get the database link set up, you don't run into the issues with that. It worked pretty smooth.
Okay. Yeah, and if you don't do the database link, don't do this. You're basically rebuilding your HFM app from scratch.
Yeah, I think that would be the only other alternative.
Yeah, and that's where you get into like a massive data reconciliation activity, right?
And I think the only case you really need to do that is, if you had like you were going from an Oracle to SQL Server database, then this doesn't work because obviously there are different databases, and that database link and import, as Devin pointed out, that won't work. So I think it's really the only case that you would really need to do that, do it the hard way. But
yeah, and folks on the phone, if you're heavy duty on HFM, and if you're going to go back and consolidate lock periods in the past, you're probably going to be faced with a few months of data reconciliation. So, this is probably the saving grace if you want to avoid a few months worth of an upgrade if it works well. But yeah, it certainly sounds like something to explore. Cool. So so this is done. Now, once this is done, next slide is right. So obviously now we're done. We've got our HFM app up and running, and we're wondering what to do when it comes to managing your metadata, right? So, with this release, if you don't know already, that EPMA has been deprecated and will not be available. So that means that as soon as you finish the upgrade, your apps are going to be in classic mode, and you're going to have to manage your metadata somewhere outside. So Oracle has given us an option to use DRM Lite, which is included in this 11.2 suite. It does come with a few caveats where you have to manage metadata only for your on-prem application, so HFM space planning, but you cannot do any type of data table or interface table type of integration. So, I've personally worked on, sourcing metadata from a EPMA interface table in the past. So if you're using that in your current environment, you want to just think about, how are you going to do that if you're going to use DRM Lite? Another thing to think about is, what you're going to have to do in terms of building integrations and validations in DRM Lite. So things like, HFM, if you bring in an app, you have to obviously do some configuration, like your custom top members, and you have to configure that in DRM. So if you're not really a DRM person, you want to make sure that you're, you either practice doing that configuration process or bring somebody on who has that experience, so that you know what you're going to be dealing with. So you're not going to be able to just bring your HFM app in and then all of those custom top member associated dimensions are just going to instantly work. So that's been some information that we've heard from folks that have already tried that process out. So again, if you want to manage your metadata, you always have classic metadata management. And if you're dealing with a number of applications that are smaller and lighter, then yeah, this might be the way to do it, right? So there's some folks out there that have actually, Dave, I'm reading your comments; they're awesome. So yeah, yeah. If you don't like your admin, you can stay in classic if you have 10 different applications. So sorry, I lost my frame of thought. It is a quick way to do it if you have a few different applications. But again, if you've done this process before and you've done it manually, and you move to EPMA, going back into Classic for different applications or a large volume of metadata is going to be pretty tough, and it's also very error prone. So you just want to think about that, because those errors that can be introduced based on flipping a property here or there incorrectly in multiple applications is going to lead to varying financial results across these applications, and that's something that you really want to tie down. So they definitely don't want calls from the business saying, hey, this doesn't tie. Next slide. So the EPMware option, and I'll go back and just talk a little bit about what EPMware is and how it works. EPMware is a master data management, data governance software solution. If you've worked on DRM or DRG in the past, we're kind of similar, where we manage metadata, and we've made some changes in our product where we have built in plug and play connections to all of the Oracle Hyperion Cloud and on-prem products. And we've got another slide earlier that shows all the different integrations that we support. And we'll send the slide deck out later after this call, and feel free to kind of reach out if you've got a question on any of those adapters. But for the Oracle Hyperion world, all the cloud and on-prem products are supported, and that really means that you can import an application very easily by simply just registering the application and then hitting the import button, and EPMware goes out and pulls that application and brings it in. And so it parses through that extract, and it's typically like an LCM extract, and stages your hierarchy exactly how you used to see it in EPMA. In addition to that, we also put in built-in validations for all of those applications. So, when you used to go into EPMA and used to hit buttons like, validate prior to, deploying to a target application, you used to get, error messages that would tell you if you flagged a property incorrectly, or you have member name, alias, duplicate members. So a lot of those like out of the box validations are what we put into EPMware to be able to replicate that EPMA style of metadata management with ease. So you can bring in your application into EPMware pretty quickly. Each app takes probably about 7 to 10 minutes to register and then to import. But in addition to that, what we also have is a data governance platform, and the data governance platform allows users to log in and review and approve metadata as needed. So what you see down here below is a kind of like a sample workflow process, and I don't think I'm not gonna go into like a full EPMware demo on this app. I'll give you guys like the high level on what it does, and if you're interested, just reach out and we can go into like a further deep dive. We do include reading and feeding from any other application or data warehouse. So if you do have a requirement where you need to source metadata from other apps, you can definitely do that. So what we're busy talking to customers about right now is, when do you upgrade, and when you do that upgrade, are you going to incorporate EPMware prior to the upgrade, bring your apps over to Classic, or even afterwards, are you going to then bring EPMware up and running at the same time as your upgraded applitions? And there's kind of pros and cons to both, and reach out if you're interested in that. We can review what your landscape looks like and where it makes sense to incorporate a product like this. So a big difference between us and like a DRM Lite type of solution is DRM Lite obviously is free, right? It comes with the product. But for us, we can't give the product out for free. So there is a license cost to managing your applications. But I think there's a balance between, you know, the cost of EPMware, the consulting effort on EPMware is light. And from what we've seen, the consulting effort on the DRM Lite side could be a little bit higher. So it might be a wash, but you know, you should definitely you know, talk to some Oracle DRM folks. We're happy to recommend some, so you can understand exactly what the differences are, and you can make a decision prior to going forward. We do not have any per node fees either. So as soon as you get a license, you can load in 1 million nodes or 10 million nodes or, you know, 5,000 nodes. It doesn't really matter. We don't price by the node. Creating metadata. Users typically go into a create request screen and they'll click on metadata. And here you can see a hierarchy that a user would interact with. You can always have users use a bulk upload form, but most folks will kind of just get a dimension and a hierarchy, right click, and you'll be able to take some of the same actions that, or almost all the same actions you used to in EPMA, probably a few more, and make changes to your application. Now, the way we structure EPMware is if you have multiple applications that you want to manage, just like you used to in EPMA with you know, a shared library, we kind of take it a step further where we allow you to map this application to other applications. So if you have HFM, S-Base, and planning, and you want to make a change to this product dimension, you can map that dimension to those other applications, and then you'll be able to make a change in one app and have it reflect in the other app. Now, in addition to that, you'll be able to build in logic to that relationship too, so that if your hierarchy in your HFM is at a different granularity than that S-Base application, you'll be able to say, all right, if I create a member in HFM at this parent, it goes to a different parent in that application. And that's part of our, you know, kind of requirements gathering session where, you know, a consultant will sit with you and work with you and understand, you know, what are the applications that you want to manage? What are the structures like? You know, what does your workflow look like when this is created, right? Is this going to be, is a request going to be created by a business user, or is it going to be created by the administrator? And depending on like what your workflow requirements are, that's where you would probably want to make a decision. So here you're getting, you know, you're getting your EPMA functionality. You're also getting governance. And if you haven't had a governance process in the past, this is where you can take a step to, you know, introduce something and allow your data governance program to kind of develop and make some changes. Finally, what happens here is EPMware, when you're ready, will push this metadata to all of the target apps. You can push that out via a scheduled process, or you can push it out, you know, ad hoc by application. And EPMware knows that, you know, that application has consumed that metadata successfully, and then goes back and then reflects it here in the hierarchy. So you can see there's a few members here in red, and those members in red mean that they haven't deployed yet. So there's a full end-to-end set of visibility between these applications. As far as workflow goes, we support you know, review, approve processes, allow users to enrich the request as it goes through. We support real-time validations, custom validations, and then finally you can deploy out to interface tables or flat files. So let's see, what I didn't want to discuss here is importing this application to EPMware. Now again, this is, we made it pretty easy for you to bring your app in. You know, I mentioned it takes about 10 minutes or so, and that's really just configuring, you know, what type of application you're supporting, like what is the import, where is the app coming from, where is it deploying to, the username and the password, and there's an import button that you don't see over here over to the right. Once you click that import button, we reach out, we pull in an LCM or whatever that, you know, file format is for that application, and then we stage the application, right? And once that's done, then you're able to simply come in and, you know, create your request. And, you know, creating a request is you don't have to just simply create one member. You're able to create, multiple different types of transactions. So you can build an entire hierarchy here, and have those changes sit in EPMware. And then finally, when you're ready, you can push those out. But you can see here, we've got some create, some rename, some edit properties. So it's, super flexible in that regard. So let me just jump back over here and see if there's any other questions. Okay, so I don't see any other questions. So what I'm going to do is kind of just wait a minute and see if there's anything else. Guys, feel free to just kind of raise your hand and in the room and see if you've got any more info. All right, so I think we've pretty much covered it. Oh, wait, hold on, I see something else coming in. Any audit changes? Yeah, so EPMware does keep a full trace on every transaction that's occurred in the product. So what we're able to do is very easily through our audit and reporting module, we have a series of about 40 to 50 CAN reports that you're able to transact on and visualize every single change for metadata. So you can see who's reviewed what changes, who's approved the changes in the application. And then finally, you can export those reports out to CSV or HTML. You can also do some pretty cool things like you can create metadata compares, hierarchy compares, and then let's see, we got another question here. So Haroon, hey, what's up, Haroon? If you test run with couple of years to check the duration of the conversion, and when you run the conversion for the remaining years, would it know not to create the app the second time around? So Tony, I'm not sure if you tried it like incrementally, your app upgrade over a number of years. Hey, Tony, you're on mute.
Okay, so that was from Haroon. If you test
Yeah.
run a couple of years to check duration of the conversion, and when you run the conversion for remaining years, would it know not to create the app the second time? I didn't try that, but I think if the application existed, I mean, it's not going to create, if you give it the same name, it's not going to create it again. I didn't try that though, so I'm not really sure, but it's a good question.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's probably worth it because, even if you error out on running this process on, several years, like a 6-year, 7-year application, I'm sure people have several years in their apps, unless you're archiving it off, is going to take quite some time. So in a case where you hit some issues or you error out, that would be a good thing to test. And unfortunately, we haven't tested that yet.
Yeah, I would say if you select the same application name, it's not going to create it again. But I guess I'd have to test it out.
Yeah.
Good question though.
So we got another question from Terry. Hey Terry, can you compare a hierarchy from example last March to this March to see changes made during a time frame, or is there a report that would show those changes? So great question. Yes, we do have a report that allows you to see a point in time for any dimension or for any application. So what that means is you can go into the report, you can click, you see a little calendar and you can click yesterday or last month, any day in the history that the app existed in EPMware. And then that EPMware will give you the hierarchy as of that day. So that's been a favorite amongst a lot of different folks that we've demoed this to. And it's primarily because folks are like, I remember back, if they came from DRM to EPMware, they would create a version and they would just like archive versions off. So what this allowed people to do is really not have to do that process, because EPMware just kept like a daily snapshot. So let me see if there's still questions coming in.
So there was a question on bulk upload. I just answered it. So if you want to talk about bulk upload.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no. So I talked about bulk upload before, but you know, in our request screen, we do cover the ability for users to do a bulk upload. So you certainly don't have to make these changes by right-clicking on the hierarchy and creating transactions. Very easy to just make your changes in a CSV file and upload it to the request. And then EPMware does manage all of those changes and run validations against all of those changes in the bulk upload. And it'll commit those changes directly to that request. So, you know, we've had, you know, one example for our prior customers, they built an entire Essbase hierarchy in EPMware, and then that hierarchy was mapped to about 7 Essbase cubes. And that was their process to rationalize their hierarchy. So they kind of started from scratch with an EPMware implementation where they said, this is our master hierarchy. We're going to create that entire hierarchy in one application in one request. Now we map that out to all 7 cubes, and then it pushed that out to all 7 cubes. So you had a fully rationalized hierarchy across all of your applications for Essbase just by loading up a bulk upload template. So that's kind of like an extreme example of it, but most folks use it for, you know, just allowing the business to populate a spreadsheet where, you know, they may not necessarily be comfortable to log into like an end user interface and, you know, make the changes where they want to. But we certainly do support, you know, having an end user interface that allows you to have a user interact with a hierarchy in a very limited fashion. So we'll create security on that dimension or that hierarchy so that they can only make changes in certain parents. Right, so let me just refresh some questions here and if we've got anything else. Another question, can EPMware connect to and extract dimension information from source systems like EBS or PeopleSoft? So awesome question. We do support EBS, we do support PeopleSoft, we do support Oracle Fusion. So you can just register an application in EPMware like I showed you before and extract your either your flex fields or your ERP metadata and manage it in EPMware. So we've done it, you know, for EBS or for Fusion in the past. You know, with that said, not a lot of customers want a third-party application directly interfacing with the GL. So it's really subjective. And really kind of just like highly dependent on like what IT is comfortable with. But, you know, we do have the capability to connect, but, you know, you may want, or IT may want like an interface table in between us and an ERP. And that's certainly doable. So they would push metadata to that interface table. We would consume it from that metadata table. But again, that's just dependent on, you know, what are the policies of your organization. Right, so we're kind of just coming up on time. Just wanted to remind you guys, we'll be sending out this deck. Of course, if you've got any other questions, reach out to us, epmware.com, if you want to learn how this is going to work in your environment. We're more than happy to schedule a POC for you where we can import your classic apps and you can use EPMware for free for a trial period. And one more question just came in. Excel is quite common in metadata maintenance in 11.124. Is this working in 11.2? That is a good question. Yeah, I don't have the answer for that right now. So, Elena, I will look that up and I'll make it a point to get back to you on that. So again, thanks everyone for joining, and have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. Please join us on the Zoom happy hour, say hello, and please stay healthy. Great talking to everyone. Take care. Bye.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.